In today's devlog, we're taking a look at a new boss that we have added to Billy's Nightmare. But more about that later. First, I wanna show you something that we have changed in our co-op mode. Now that the game finally has 3 connected levels, we felt that it was time to make some quality of life changes. For example, we knew that we wanted both players to enter the next level together. So, if one of the players were dead, we wanted him to get revived after a boss has been defeated. The only problem was that we didn't know how to revive him in a way that made sense. Normally, for a dead player to get revived in co-op, the other player has to discover Mr Sandman's Temple of Healing. In there, Mr Sandman performs a small ritual and revives the dead co-op player. The problem was that we didn't know how to combine this temple and its ritual with our boss room. We already had a short sequence where Mr Sandman enters the boss room after the fight. Perhaps we could modify this sequence in some way to revive a dead player. But instead of spending lots of time on making advanced changes to the sequence, we felt that less is more. So, if one of the players are dead at the end of a boss fight, he simply just appears at full health and accompanies Mr Sandman when he enters the room. And this way, we don't mess with the flow of the sequence, so the 2 players can get back to the game immediately, without having to watch any additional cutscenes. So, let's take a look at our new boss that we have added. Just like our Annihilator boss, with its upper body drawn in 8 directions, we knew that we wanted to give our new boss some unique and interesting animations. But instead of drawing this new boss in multiple directions, we wanted to make him unique by animating him with a lot of loose parts. So we got the idea to make the boss a jack-in-a-box, which is a classic toy that many kids are afraid of. We knew that we could build him with many moving parts, like his spring swinging back and forth, his body at the top, and his arms moving up and down. There was only one problem. This whole idea depended on me being able to code this type of movement, with all the different parts synced together. So before we began planning the look of the boss and what his attack patterns would be, I decided to make a prototype to make sure that I could get everything to work. So I used some basic shapes and finally managed to get the spring to swing left and right. I also made the boss fly up from the box with an elastic effect on the spring. And after a while, he calmly moved back down into the box again. At this point, we knew that we could get the animation to work. So it was time for Fabian to draw the boss and his box. But what would our jack-in-a-box look like? At first, we wanted to make him look like a clown, because that is something that kids are afraid of. But instead of making him look like a classic clown, we decided to make him look more like a jester. When we replaced my placeholder graphics with our new jester boss, we realized that his arms wouldn't fit inside the box. Instead of making the box bigger, we took inspiration from Reaper's classic pose in Overwatch, where he holds his guns in front of his body. So, before the jester moves down, he places his arms in front of his body to make sure that everything fits inside the box. This animation also gives some extra character to the boss. We finally added an animation where the lid opens together with some screen shake. And when the jester moves down, the lid closes and gives the box a squash and stretch animation. With his basic movements finished, we then moved on to the boss room and the intro cinematic. So, what kind of attacks will the jester boss have? Well, as you can see, the jester has 2 different weapons in his hands, a moon and a star. So we decided to give him 2 different attacks, based on these weapons. When using his moon attack, the jester spawns lots of moon-shaped projectiles all over the room. This is based on your feedback, where you wanted us to add more projectiles with unique shapes. When it was time to add the star attack, we first had some problems. Our first idea was that the jester would shoot multiple lines from his weapons, creating the shapes of stars. But we realized that this was a pretty bad idea. because the boss and his weapons swing back and forth all the time, so it was very difficult to react to where the lines were going. We also discovered that there were multiple blind spots in the room where the lines couldn't hit you at all. So we decided to skip this idea and make something else. We instead made him spawn multiple projectiles in formations shaped as stars. This immediately made the attack more interesting. The Jester boss also has a third, more simple attack. Every time he moves down into his box, he then jumps a few times, spawning a couple of circles when landing. This attack isn't super exciting, but we wanted to make it a little bit more interesting than the boss just moving down into his box and then jumping back out again immediately. The Jester boss is probably the boss that we have spent the longest time making, starting way back with our basic shape tests and all the way to his final death animation. It took us over a month to finish everything. So now we are really excited to hear your feedback. What do you think about our new boss for Billy's Nightmare? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.